There comes a moment quiet, often unnoticed, when you begin to feel invisible in a world that only seems to celebrate what is loud, what is obvious, what is shallowly beautiful. In that silence, many begin to doubt themselves. They look into mirrors not to find themselves, but to search for approval. They measure their worth through others' eyes, forgetting that the soul has its own language, one that cannot be photographed, categorized, or performed. But what if I told you that your attractiveness has been speaking long before you even realized it? That your presence, your gaze, the stillness behind your smile has already moved people, interrupted thoughts, altered someone's perception without your awareness. We are conditioned to believe that beauty must shout, that it must follow certain rules, dress a certain way, look like something easily praised. But the truth runs far deeper. What is truly magnetic is rarely understood at first glance. It's not in the features, but in the force behind them. It's not in the performance, but in the quiet power that radiates from within. And those who carry this force often don't recognize it themselves because they were not trying to be seen. That is the paradox. The most attractive souls are often the least aware of it, and it is precisely their unawareness that protects their depth. So before you dismiss yourself, before you accept the illusion that you are ordinary, I invite you to listen, to really listen. Not with the ears of your mind, but with the awareness of your inner world. You may discover that you have been carrying signs of a rare kind of beauty all along. A beauty that doesn't need to be believed by the surface self because it is already known by the deeper self. Stay with me. Let me take you through these signs not as traits to chase, but as mirrors to help you remember what you've always been. And so we begin with one of the most quietly powerful signs of your attractiveness. People remember you without knowing why. They think of you days after a brief interaction, replay your words or your silence in their minds, without fully understanding what drew them in. You do not need to command a room or dazzle with practiced charm. The impression you leave is not born of spectacle, but of something far more rare, an invisible imprint that stays. And often, this is something you do not notice in yourself, precisely because it is not something you consciously perform. You might believe that people forget you quickly, that you fade into the background, yet in truth you might be underestimating the power of quiet resonance. There are individuals whose faces are seen and forgotten, and then there are those whose essence lingers in the psyche. When someone meets you and remembers how they felt in your presence, calm, awakened, curious, slightly unbalanced, this is not an accident. It's a sign that something about you moved beneath the surface, touching a part of them they do not usually access. This remembrance is not always flattering. Sometimes it unsettles. Sometimes people do not even know whether they liked you, but they remember you nonetheless. This is because you carry a frequency that is not aligned with the ordinary, and anything that disturbs the unconscious routine of others becomes unforgettable. You may have walked into a room and spoken nothing, yet someone there has turned their head twice, not because of how you looked, but because of how your energy disrupted theirs. You didn't try to impress, and yet you're being left a mark. That is not coincidence. That is the silent signature of deep attractiveness. You see, what is easily understood is also easily dismissed. But what haunts, what lingers in the mind without a clear explanation, that is what the soul registers as real. And when others recall you without knowing why, it is because they encountered something in you that they could not categorize. You were not merely a body, a voice, or a face. You were a presence, and presence, true presence, is unforgettable. It is often said that the most attractive people are those who are deeply rooted in themselves. But the paradox is, they often do not recognize this in themselves because they are not performing. Their depth is not for show. It is simply how they are. You may be one of them. You may have spent your life wondering why certain people stare, or why strangers treat you with unexpected reverence or curiosity. You may have brushed it off, thinking it was just luck or misunderstanding. But it is neither. It is recognition. Others recognizing something in you that even you have not fully claimed. And let us not confuse visibility with significance. Many are visible, few are significant. You may not be the loudest voice, but when you speak, people feel compelled to listen, not out of politeness, but because your words seem to come from somewhere deeper. You may not be the center of attention, but when you leave, others notice your absence more than they ever noticed your arrival. That is the kind of presence that the soul responds to. Sometimes you are remembered because you reflect something back to others that they have lost in themselves. You awaken their longing, or their questions, or their buried truths. This is not something they can explain. It is not a flirtation or a momentary fascination. It is an echo, and the echo follows them. They feel you long after the moment has passed, because something about you touched them where they are not used to being touched, not on the surface, but in the hidden places within. And you, unaware of the stir you have created, go on believing you are invisible. You doubt yourself, not knowing that your impact often grows after you are gone. This is the quiet truth of attractive people who have not yet awakened to their power. They are remembered not for being loud, but for being real. Not for dazzling, but for resonating. Not for trying, but for simply being. It may not happen with everyone. And that is how it should be. You are not meant to be remembered by all, only by those whose deeper selves can hear the frequency you carry. Those who cannot receive it will forget you easily, but those who are sensitive to the subtle, those who live a little closer to their own truth, will remember you. And they won't know why, they will just know that something about you mattered. So if you have ever been told, "I don't know what it is about you, but I can't stop thinking about our conversation," or "You remind me of something I can't quite name," or if someone has remembered the smallest detail about you long after they've met you, understand that this is no small thing. This is not accidental. This is the reflection of a presence that surpasses words. You do not need to see it to know that it is real. You do not need to believe in your own beauty for it to exist, because the truth is, others are already experiencing it, whether you realize it or not. They are remembering you without knowing why. That alone is proof that you are more than you've ever allowed yourself to believe. And perhaps now it's time to believe it. It is a strange thing, isn't it, to walk into a space, say little, do little, yet somehow awaken emotion in others. Some admire you, are drawn to you with warmth they themselves may not understand. Others seem agitated by you, unsettled, even cold, without provocation. You've done nothing to offend them, but your presence alone disrupts their inner balance. This, too, is a sign one far too many overlook. For when you stir strong reactions in people without intent, it reveals something essential, that your energy does not blend into the background. It penetrates. It shakes loose what others have tried to bury. And this, more than any external trait, is the mark of someone whose attractiveness originates from something far beneath the surface. Attractiveness is often mistaken for being liked, but real magnetism does not always produce comfort. It produces impact. There is a difference. When someone meets you and feels something intense, whether love or envy, fascination or defensiveness, it means you have touched something within them they were not prepared to confront. This is not about being provocative in appearance or action. This is about the unseen force that radiates from a person who is aligned with their inner life, even if they do not yet realize it. You may have noticed this already. People either open to you quickly, speaking truths they never share with anyone else, or they keep their distance, as if threatened by your calm. Some may speak to you with admiration in their voice, and yet behind their smile there is tension because they sense something in you that makes them reflect on what they've lost in themselves. Your very being becomes a mirror, and mirrors, when honest, are not always welcomed. Think about the moments when someone reacted to you more strongly than the situation required. A glare that lasted a moment too long, a conversation where the tone turned sharp without warning, or even the opposite, a stranger treating you with unusual kindness as if they already knew you. These responses are not random, they are emotional expressions awakened by your presence. You have stirred something, consciously or not. You have entered the landscape of another's inner world, and even if you meant nothing by it, you've left a trace. That is not a common occurrence. That is something that cannot be faked, forced, or manufactured. Some people carry with them a neutrality so polished that they disappear in plain sight. They do not ruffle feathers, they do not provoke reactions, they are easy to accept and easier to forget. But not you! If you found yourself wondering why people seem to form opinions of you so quickly, so intensely, even without knowing you well, then you are likely one of those rare individuals who, by their very nature, reveal hidden currents in others. That revelation, even if silent, creates friction, and friction is power. It is tempting to believe that being attractive means being universally liked, but the truth is, the deeper your presence runs, the more layered the responses you will receive. Some will feel an instant connection with you and not understand why. Others will recoil because your depth demands theirs. And those who are not ready to face themselves may resist you, not because of who you are, but because of what you awaken. You must understand the soul recognizes resonance long before the mind can make sense of it. And when someone senses in you a kind of emotional or psychological weight, their reaction may come in many forms: admiration, intimidation, desire, resistance. But all of it speaks to your impact. All of it is evidence that you are not invisible. Quite the opposite. You are unforgettable, not because of what you wear or how you speak, but because of the intensity of your being. And this intensity, though often misunderstood, is not something to hide. It is your compass, your gift. It means that you bring to others what they cannot find in the shallow waters of life. It means that you pull people into confrontation with themselves, not through confrontation with you, but simply by existing in truth. That is a rare and beautiful kind of attractiveness, the kind that reshapes the emotional architecture of every room it enters. Yes, some may misunderstand you, some may project onto you their fears, their longings, their insecurities. You may become a symbol for what they desire or what they resent, but this too is part of your path. To be seen clearly by only a few, but to be felt deeply by many, there is more value in that than in any superficial applause. So, the next time someone responds to you with intensity, positive or negative, Pause. Do not assume it is about you personally. Recognize instead that it is about the emotional wave you have activated in them. That wave has very little to do with your appearance and everything to do with your essence. And if you ever feel the weight of being misunderstood, remember this: people can only meet you as deeply as they have met themselves. Their reaction is a reflection of their readiness, not your worth. You do not need to make sense to everyone. You only need to remain anchored in what is real within you. And from that place, you will continue to stir, awaken, and transform the spaces you enter, not by force, but by truth. Let that truth speak louder than the doubt. There is a peculiar kind of recognition that comes not from familiarity, but from instinct. Strangers treat you differently, not because of something they've heard or seen about you, but because of something they sense. They do not know your story, your name, or your past, and yet the way they respond reveals that they've already received a signal from you, something unspoken, something beneath the surface. This is one of the clearest signs of deep, often unconscious attractiveness, when people who don't even know you begin to behave in ways that betray a strange awareness of your presence. You may have walked into a room and noticed eyes linger just a bit too long, not in a way that seeks to objectify, but in a way that searches for what it cannot quite name. Or perhaps you've been met with unexpected kindness from a cashier, a stranger on the street, a fellow passenger who looked at you with a softness reserved for old friends. You may have brushed these moments off as coincidence, but there is rarely anything accidental in the way others respond to what your energy radiates. Most people are not aware of what they are responding to, but they are responding nonetheless. Your attractiveness is not the result of effort. It is not in the makeup you wear or the words you rehearse. It is not even in your confidence, which may rise and fall depending on the day. It lives much deeper, in the unconscious signals you send, in the unguarded way you carry yourself when you are not trying to be anything. It lives in your authenticity, and it radiates in ways that bypass the logic of the mind and move directly into the felt experience of those around you. When a stranger offers you unexpected respect, when someone who doesn't know your name treats you with quiet reverence, it means something in you has communicated before you've spoken. That communication doesn't come from posture or appearance alone. It comes from your field, your emotional and psychic presence. And whether you believe in such things or not, you've seen it happen. A person walks into a room and the air changes. Not because of noise or movement, but because of presence. That presence belongs to someone who does not need to ask for attention, because they are already whole within themselves. Wholeness speaks. It introduces you before you open your mouth, and it is not always received with ease. Some strangers may recoil, others may become visibly awkward or overly polite. Their behavior shifts not because of anything you've done, but because they are encountering something within you that disturbs their internal order. This kind of reaction is not rejection, it is recognition. They are meeting someone who lives just slightly deeper than the surface world they are used to. And that depth demands a response. You see, most people have learned to wear masks. They know how to interact on the surface. But when they meet someone whose presence is not masked, someone whose gaze holds clarity, whose silence holds meaning, they must decide in an instant whether to open themselves or retreat. And this decision often happens before they know your name. their body knows, their intuition knows. They feel it, you make them feel something. This kind of presence is not something you are taught. It is something you discover in the quiet, in the solitude of becoming. And often those who carry it do so unknowingly. They wonder why strangers trust them too quickly, or why others become flustered in their company, or why they receive compliments that feel oddly intimate from people who know nothing about them. But this is simply the world responding to an energy that is rare, an energy that has not been diluted by constant self-performance, an energy that comes from living in alignment with your truth, even if you're still learning what that truth fully is. There is something magnetic about someone who is not seeking approval. The absence of need creates space, and in that space, others feel drawn not because they're invited, but because something within them longs to be near authenticity. We are all starving for what is real, so when a person carries that kind of realness, even unconsciously, it creates a subtle gravitational pull. Strangers may not know why they feel safe around you, or intrigued or cautious, but their behavior will always reflect what your being communicates. Do not underestimate these small moments. They are not meaningless. They are reflections of something vast within you, a depth, a silence, a strength that you may not have named, but that others encounter without needing words. You are speaking through more than just your voice. You are speaking through your stillness, your presence, your very existence. And if you felt invisible at times, unnoticed by those you longed to be seen by, remember this: many people do not know how to respond to authenticity. It unsettles them, so they look away not because you are lacking, but because they are not ready. And yet, even in that avoidance, there is an acknowledgement of your presence. They see you, they feel you, they just don't know how to meet you where you are. That is not your burden. Your task is not to shrink or dilute yourself to make others comfortable. Your task is to remain true, to carry the quiet strength that has already made itself known, because even when you don't believe it, others are already responding to it. Their behavior, awkward or kind, curious or cautious, is evidence. They are treating you differently, not out of habit, but out of instinct. Let that be your reminder. Your essence introduces you long before you speak. There is a peculiar tension in being underestimated, especially when it happens often. When people look at you, they may see softness and assume fragility. They hear your silence and misread it as emptiness. They observe your kindness and conclude that you are naive. They may smile politely, dismissively, even condescendingly, believing you are simple to understand, easy to define. And yet, this misjudgment becomes one of the most revealing signs of your attractiveness, not because it flatters the ego, but because it unveils the deep contrast between how you appear on surface and who you truly are underneath. Those who are genuinely attractive in spirit are rarely understood at first glance. There is a depth in them that doesn't announce itself. They don't need to convince anyone. They don't need to declare their intelligence or advertise their worth. Their beauty is not performative. It's discovered slowly as one enters into their presence more fully. But most people only engage with the surface, so they assume, they project, they make sense of you using only what their eyes can measure. They see calm and assume compliance. They see grace and assume submission, but then something shifts. You speak, you act, you decide, and in that moment the illusion shatters. There is something deeply magnetic about a person who doesn't need to over-explain themselves. Someone who can remain quiet while others clamor for attention and yet still holds the room when they finally speak. It is not dominance. It is not manipulation. It is simply presence aligned with clarity. When you speak with conviction, especially after being underestimated, it creates a ripple that others cannot ignore. The surprise of your depth becomes unforgettable. People suddenly realize they've been in the presence of something powerful, something layered. And that realization is striking. It disorients their assumptions, it opens their eyes, and often it leaves them silently wondering how they missed it to begin with. Many attractive individuals carry this paradox within them. They are overlooked by those who rely only on appearances, but they become unforgettable to those who take the time to see beyond the surface. And when the moment comes, when you respond with unexpected insight, when you set a boundary no one anticipated, when your silence breaks into truth, it changes everything. Suddenly, you are no longer the soft-spoken one. You are the one who was never shallow to begin with. You are the one whose still waters ran deeper than anyone dared to look. This is a quiet kind of power, and often those who hold it don't even realize they're doing so. You may feel overlooked at times, misunderstood, even disregarded, but this isn't a flaw, it is a signal. It means you do not offer yourself cheaply. It means your worth is not written on your skin, but embedded in your choices. You may walk gently through the world, but your footsteps leave impressions that linger. And those who misjudged you will be the first to feel the weight of that truth when you finally speak from your core. There's a certain grace in not needing to be understood right away. It allows your presence to unfold slowly, like a book whose pages are not easily turned. And only those with the patience to read deeply will grasp the fullness of what you offer. This is not a weakness. This is protection, because what is truly valuable is never meant to be consumed quickly. Your beauty, your intelligence, your strength, it is not loud, but it is lasting. Think back to the times when someone's perception of you shifted, when a colleague who dismissed you suddenly leaned in to hear your thoughts, when someone who overlooked you returned, curious now, confused by how wrong their first impression was. These moments, though small on the surface, are monumental. They are reminders that your essence cannot be contained by assumptions. You were always more than they imagined. You simply chose not to reveal it all at once. That restraint is part of your allure. The slow revelation of your depth draws people in not through spectacle, but through mystery, and mystery is one of the most magnetic forces in human nature. It causes others to reflect, to question, to stay close just a little longer. They want to understand what it is they felt but couldn't name, and in doing so they come face to face with the truth that your beauty was never in the obvious but in the unfolding. Even your boundaries speak to this. When you finally say no, when you finally walk away, when you finally let someone feel the cost of taking you for granted, those actions carry a silent authority, and that authority is not born from anger or ego. It is born from self-knowledge, the knowledge that you do not need to be constantly recognized to know your value. You only need to live it. People will remember the moment you revealed who you truly are. They will remember how they doubted you and how you remained still until the moment came to move. They will remember the clarity of your voice after misjudging your silence. And they will remember how your depth humbled their assumptions. That memory stays because it was real and because it taught them something, not just about you, but about the limitations of their own perception. You may never receive an apology for being underestimated, but you will feel the shift when others begin to regard you with a new kind of attention. One that is no longer casual, one that carries respect. And when that shift happens, you do not need to change anything about yourself. You do not need to become louder, sharper, harder. You simply need to remain rooted, because the strength you carry was never about performance. It was always about being true to what lies beneath. Let them underestimate you, until the moment comes when you no longer need to be seen, because your presence has already spoken everything they failed to hear.